Her daughters wept from hunger on Christmas, until a widowed farmer found them, and did the morning sun struggled to rise over the small, snow-covered village, its weak light barely touching the frost-laden rooftops. Christmas morning had arrived, but there was no sound of laughter or carols. The air was cold and still, as if the world itself was holding its breath. In a tiny, worn-down cottage at the edge of the village, a young widowed mother sat by the window, staring out at the white fields blanketing the earth. Her hands, rough from hard work and worry, rested on her lap. She had nothing to offer her children today, not even a warm breakfast, let alone the toys and treats that seemed to belong to other families. Her daughters, Lily and Emma, sat close together on a thin, threadbare blanket near the small fireplace, which barely gave off any warmth. The fire sputtered weakly, casting long shadows on the cracked walls. Lily, the older of the two, hugged her knees to her chest, her eyes glassy with unshed tears. Emma, barely 5, pressed her face into her sister's shoulder, shivering despite her thin sweater. Their stomachs rumbled quietly, a painful reminder of the empty cupboards and the bitter reality of their hunger. The mother's heart ached as she watched them. She had tried all she could, but the harsh winter, combined with the loss of her husband just months ago, had left her struggling to survive. Bills had piled up, her small garden had failed, and the little money she had saved was gone long before Christmas arrived. She thought of the other families in the village, bustling with holiday cheer, carrying baskets of food and decorating their homes with colorful lights. A deep pang of guilt and sadness gripped her chest. She felt like she had failed her children, and the thought was unbearable. "Mommy," Lily whispered, her voice trembling, "do you think Santa will come this year?" She tried to smile, but the corners of her mouth betrayed her doubt. The mother swallowed hard. She wanted to comfort her daughters, to give them hope, but how could she promise them anything? I don't know, my love," she said softly, her voice breaking. "Sometimes Santa, sometimes he's busy, but we have each other, and that's what matters." Emma sniffled and pressed closer. I just want some food, Mommy, just a little something warm." Her small hands rubbed at her tummy. The mother felt tears sting her eyes, but she blinked rapidly, trying to hold them back. She couldn't cry in front of her children. They needed her strength, not her despair. She got up slowly and went to the tiny kitchen, where the few remaining utensils and a single, half-empty pot sat on the worn wooden counter. The cupboards were bare, save for a small bag of flour and a couple of stale apples. She touched them gently, imagining she could somehow make them into a warm meal, but she knew it wasn't enough. Her mind raced for a solution, a way to give her daughters even a little bit of Christmas joy. But the truth was cruel and unavoidable. They would go hungry today, just as they had many days before. From the corner of her eye, she saw Lily standing by the window, watching the village street. Through the thin frost on the glass, she could see other children running with their parents, bundles of gifts in their arms, bright scarves around their necks, and laughter filling the cold air. Lily's small face pressed against the glass, her breath leaving tiny marks on the frost. She watched silently, longing for something she could not have. The mother's heart broke even more. She knelt beside her daughters and wrapped her arms around them. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I wish I could give you everything. I wish I could make this day perfect." Lily shook her head. "It's not your fault, Mommy. I just wish." She paused, trying to hold back her tears. "I just wish we weren't so hungry." Emma tugged at her mother's sleeve. Can we at least pretend to have a happy Christmas?" Her innocent request made the mother smile weakly, though her eyes were filled with sadness. She nodded. "Yes, my loves, we can pretend. We can make it special in our hearts, even if it's small." The three of them huddled together on the blanket, drawing comfort from each other's warmth. The mother pulled out the little she had, an old, slightly torn storybook that had belonged to her husband. She read aloud from it, her voice steady and gentle, though her heart was heavy. Lily and Emma listened, eyes wide, momentarily forgetting the gnawing emptiness in their bellies. For a short while, the harsh reality of hunger faded, replaced by the magic of stories and the closeness of family. Outside, the wind howled through the trees, rattling the windows and carrying the scent of snow and cold earth. The mother looked out and saw the villagers going about their morning, snow crunching under their boots, baskets of food and gifts swinging from their arms. She felt a pang of envy and sorrow, wishing she could provide the same for her children. She wanted them to experience the joy and warmth she had once dreamed of giving, the feeling of belonging and safety that Christmas usually brought. Her thoughts drifted to her late husband, and the grief weighed heavily on her chest. She remembered how he had loved this time of year, decorating their small home, making little gifts for the girls, and laughing at the simplest joys. Now, with him gone, the house felt emptier than ever. She tried to stay strong for her daughters, but the loneliness and despair gnawed at her spirit. The girls, sensing their mother's sadness, tried to cheer her with small acts. Lily drew a picture on a scrap of paper, a Christmas tree with crayons they had found in the back of a drawer. Emma picked tiny pine cones from outside and placed them carefully on the windowsill, pretending they were ornaments. Their efforts were small but heartfelt, and the mother felt a flicker of warmth in her heart. She hugged them tightly, silently promising herself that she would find a way to protect and care for them, no matter how difficult life became. Time passed slowly in the little cottage. Snowflakes drifted lazily against the windows, and the cold seemed to seep through every crack and corner. The mother kept glancing outside, hoping, perhaps foolishly, that something, or someone, might appear to change their fate this day. But the world remained silent, indifferent to their suffering. Just as the mother's hope began to fade, a faint sound reached her ears. At first it was almost unnoticeable, a soft crunching of snow, the creak of boots on the icy path. She strained to listen, her heart beating faster. The girls perked up, curious. "Mommy, what is that?" Lily asked softly. The mother shook her head, uncertain, but she moved to the door and opened it just a crack. Outside, through the falling snow, a lone figure was walking along the path. He was a man, tall and strong, with a worn coat and a simple bag slung over his shoulder. Something about his presence felt comforting, like a warm ember in the cold. He stopped when he saw the small cottage, and his eyes softened as he looked toward them. The mother's heart skipped a beat. She didn't know who he was or why he had come, but something inside told her that this moment might change everything. She called softly, her voice shaking, "Hello, can I help you?" The man smiled gently and lifted his bag slightly. "I hope so," he said, his voice kind and steady. I was just walking through the village, and I thought I'd see if anyone needed a little company this Christmas." The girls looked at each other in wide-eyed wonder. For the first time that day, hope flickered in their eyes. The mother, cautious but curious, stepped aside to let him in. The man's presence filled the small cottage with a quiet warmth, as if the very room was relieved to have another heart among them. He knelt down to the children's level and offered a small bundle from his bag. "I thought you might like something to eat," he said gently. The mother's eyes widened in surprise and gratitude as she realized he had brought food, a simple meal, but enough to fill their empty stomachs. The girls gasped softly, their hands reaching out eagerly. Lily's eyes sparkled with a mixture of astonishment and joy, while Emma hugged the bundle tightly, her small face lighting up with a smile that warmed the mother's heart more than the fire ever could. The mother felt tears welling in her eyes, but this time they were tears of relief and gratitude. For the first time in months, she felt hope. For the first time on this cold, lonely Christmas morning, her daughters would not go hungry. As they sat together, sharing the simple meal, the cottage seemed brighter. The man's kindness had brought warmth that no fire could provide, and the mother realized that sometimes, even in the darkest moments, help could arrive when it was needed most. Outside, the snow continued to fall softly, blanketing the village in white. Inside, the little cottage was alive with quiet laughter, whispered thanks, and the soft glow of hope rekindled in hearts that had almost given up. And in that moment, the mother knew, deep down, that this Christmas, though far from perfect, had brought a miracle in the form of a stranger who had chosen to care, proving that even in the coldest winters, warmth could still be found in human kindness. The snow had softened outside, but the cold still bit at the little cottage. The widowed mother and her daughters were still huddled around the small fire, their hands wrapped around the warm meal the stranger had brought. Lily and Emma's eyes sparkled with excitement and curiosity, as if they could not quite believe that someone had come all the way to help them on this bleak Christmas morning. The man, whose name the mother soon learned was Thomas, smiled gently at the girls. He had a kind face, lined with subtle wrinkles from years of hard work and worry, but his eyes were warm and bright. He placed his bag on the floor and began unpacking some of the simple things he had brought: a few fresh breads, a small piece of cheese, and some fruits he had gathered from the market earlier in the week. Each item, though ordinary, felt like treasure in their eyes. "You don't have to eat fast," Thomas said softly, noticing the way the girl's hands shook with hunger. "Take your time, enjoy it." The mother watched, her throat tight with gratitude. She had spent so long struggling alone, trying to shield her children from the harshness of life, but she had never expected help to come in such a quiet and gentle way. Thomas's presence filled the small room with a warmth that had nothing to do with the fire, a quiet, reassuring comfort that made the mother's heart feel lighter. The girls eagerly took the food he offered. Lily carefully broke the bread into small pieces, sharing half with her sister, while Emma clutched the fruit and nibbled at it slowly, savoring each bite as though it were the most delicious thing she had ever tasted. The mother sat quietly, letting them eat first, her own stomach aching with hunger, but she knew that her children needed to be nourished before herself. As the girls ate, Thomas began to speak quietly, telling them stories of the village, the snow-covered fields, and the animals that roamed nearby. His voice was calm and steady, and the girls listened with wide eyes, forgetting for a little while the hunger and cold that had plagued them for so long. He spoke of the joy that came from helping others, of small acts of kindness that could change lives, and the mother felt a deep connection to him, sensing that he understood the hardships of life and the pain of loss. After a while, he paused and looked at the mother. "I know this may sound sudden," he said, his voice gentle, "but if you and your daughters need a safe place, even for a little while, I can offer my home. I have enough room, and there is work to be done around the farm. You wouldn't have to worry about food or shelter anymore." The mother felt a surge of emotion. She had dreamed of this moment in her quietest, most desperate thoughts, but hearing it spoken aloud felt almost too good to be true. Her eyes filled with tears, and she nodded slowly. I don't know what to say. Thank you." "I never expected," her voice faltered. "I never expected anyone to care like this." Thomas smiled softly. "Sometimes the world surprises us, and sometimes it only takes one person to make a difference." The girls, still eating, looked up at him with wide, hopeful eyes. "Really?" Lily asked. "You mean we could come with you?" "Yes," Thomas said, crouching to their level. "If you want, you could come and stay with me. We can make sure you have warm clothes, plenty of food, and a safe place to sleep. You wouldn't have to be hungry anymore." Emma's small face lit up, and she ran to her mother, tugging at her sleeve. "Mommy, can we go, please?" The mother looked at her daughters, then back at Thomas. She thought of the cold nights, the empty cupboards, and the tears of her children. She thought of the loneliness that had filled her home since her husband's passing. Finally, she nodded, taking a deep breath. Yes, we'll come. Thank you, Thomas." Thomas's smile widened, and he helped them gather their few belongings. There were only a few simple things: a worn blanket, a couple of old toys, and the small bag of clothes they had. But to them, it was everything they owned. He carried the bags for them, and together they stepped out into the soft snowfall. The village looked brighter somehow, the white snow sparkling like diamonds in the morning light. The journey to Thomas's farm was short but felt magical. The girls ran a little ahead, their laughter ringing through the crisp air, while their mother walked behind, holding their hands tightly. Thomas stayed close, keeping a watchful eye, making sure no one slipped on the icy path. The farm came into view, a small but sturdy home surrounded by fields of snow and a few animals huddled together in the barns. Smoke rose from the chimney, promising warmth and shelter. When they reached the farm, Thomas opened the door and invited them inside. The house smelled of fresh bread and the faint scent of wood smoke. It was simple, but neat and welcoming. A fire burned brightly in the hearth, and the warmth immediately chased away the chill from their bodies. The mother and her daughters let out a collective sigh, sinking into the comfort of the room. Thomas guided them to the kitchen table where he had set out a simple breakfast. "Eat as much as you like," he said. "There is plenty for everyone." The girls' eyes widened once more. They had never seen so much food in one place, and they eagerly filled their plates. The mother joined them after a moment, feeling the warmth of the fire and the kindness of Thomas. She realized that for the first time in many months, she could breathe without fear, without the constant weight of hunger and worry pressing down on her chest. After breakfast, Thomas gave them a small tour of the farm. He showed them the animals, explaining how each one had a role to play and how they could help care for them. The girls were fascinated, asking endless questions about the chickens, cows, and even the small barn cats. The mother watched them, feeling a sense of peace she had not known in a long time. She saw her daughters' faces light up with curiosity and joy, and she felt a deep, almost overwhelming gratitude toward Thomas. Over the next few hours, the mother and her daughters began to settle into the farm. Thomas helped them find warm clothes and shoes, showing them how to layer for the cold winter days. He helped them make a small bed in one of the spare rooms, with blankets thick enough to keep them warm through the night. The girls immediately began arranging their little space, making it cozy with the few belongings they had brought. The mother and Thomas talked quietly while the girls explored. She learned more about him, about his own losses and struggles. He, too, had been alone for some time, and in his kindness toward them, she saw a reflection of the love and care that had been missing in her life since her husband passed. There was a quiet understanding between them, an unspoken bond formed by shared hardships and the simple act of helping one another. As the day passed, the snow continued to fall, covering the farm in a thick, peaceful blanket of white. The girls played outside for a while, their laughter echoing across the fields, before coming back inside to warm themselves by the fire. Thomas taught them small tasks, like feeding the animals and gathering firewood, making the work feel like fun. The mother watched with a sense of relief and wonder, realizing that her daughters were beginning to feel safe and cared for, something she had feared might never happen again. That evening, they all sat together by the fire, sharing a simple dinner that Thomas had prepared. The mother looked at her daughters, their faces glowing in the firelight, and felt her heart swell with gratitude. For the first time in many months, she allowed herself to relax, to breathe, to hope. The loneliness and fear that had haunted her for so long seemed to fade, replaced by a warmth that came not from the fire, but from the kindness and generosity of a stranger who had chosen to care. Before bed, Thomas sat with the girls and told them stories, just as he had in the morning. This time, however, the stories were filled with hope and laughter, about adventures on the farm, talking animals, and magical Christmas mornings. The girls listened, their eyes wide with wonder, and for a while the worries of hunger and cold melted away. When it was finally time to sleep, the mother tucked her daughters into the warm beds Thomas had prepared. She watched them for a moment, their peaceful faces bathed in the soft glow of the lamp, and felt a deep sense of relief. This Christmas, she realized, had brought them more than food and shelter. It had brought them hope, safety, and the promise of brighter days ahead. Thomas stood by the doorway for a moment, watching the mother and her daughters. He smiled softly to himself, knowing that even a small act of kindness could change the course of someone's life. And in that quiet farmhouse, surrounded by snow and warmth, a new chapter had begun for the little family, one filled with hope, care, and the gentle promise that they would never have to face hunger or fear alone again. The next morning dawned bright and clear over the farm. The sun glimmered on the fresh layer of snow, turning the fields into a sparkling white wonderland. Inside the farmhouse, the little family stirred to life with a sense of calm and excitement they hadn't felt in months. Lily and Emma woke early, eager to see what the day would bring. They ran to the window, pressing their faces against the glass as the sunlight danced across the snow, and their laughter echoed through the room like a melody long missing from the house. The mother moved quietly to prepare breakfast, still overwhelmed by the kindness that had brought them here. She glanced around the warm kitchen, taking in the small details, the neat counters, the smell of fresh bread, the soft blankets laid out for her daughters, and realized for the first time in many months that they were safe. That thought alone made her heart swell with relief. She had spent so long worrying about keeping her daughters alive through the harsh winter, but now she could finally allow herself to breathe, if only for a moment. Thomas entered the kitchen with a gentle smile, carrying a basket of eggs and milk from the farm. "Good morning," he said warmly. "I thought we could start the day with a proper breakfast. You've had enough to eat yesterday, but I know today's the start of something new." The mother nodded gratefully. "Thank you, Thomas. I don't know what we would do without your help." Thomas shook his head, his expression kind but serious. "No thanks needed. It's the right thing to do. You and your daughters shouldn't have to go hungry, and no one should feel alone. Today is just the beginning." The girls scrambled to the table, their eyes wide and eager. Breakfast was simple but plentiful: scrambled eggs, fresh bread, butter, and warm milk. But to Lily and Emma it felt like a feast. They ate quickly at first, savoring the taste, but as the meal continued, they began to relax and even giggle over small things, like Emma spilling a little milk on the table or Lily trying to butter her bread too quickly. The mother watched them, a small smile tugging at her lips, and felt a sense of joy she hadn't known in a long time. After breakfast, Thomas suggested they go outside. "The snow is beautiful this morning," he said. "I thought we could work a little on the farm, maybe check on the animals and then play. There's plenty to do, and it's always better together." The mother hesitated. She had been cautious all her life, always careful not to overstep or take risks, especially for her daughters. But Thomas's gentle encouragement made her feel safe, and she nodded. "Yes, we can do that. It will be good for the girls to see more of the farm and the animals." Bundled up in warm coats and scarves, the three of them followed Thomas outside. The cold air was sharp but invigorating, and the snow crunched pleasantly under their boots. The girls squealed with delight as they ran toward the small barn, where the animals were waiting. Chickens pecked at the ground, a few cows wandered slowly, and a small group of rabbits huddled in a pen. Thomas guided the girls, showing them how to feed the chickens and gather eggs carefully from the nests. Lily was fascinated by the way the hens clucked and scratched, while Emma giggled at the rabbits hopping around. The mother helped too, feeling a surprising sense of calm and purpose as she worked alongside Thomas. It was more than just chores. It was a chance to belong somewhere, to be useful, and to teach her daughters the value of hard work and care. Hours passed quickly, filled with small acts of kindness and learning. Thomas encouraged the girls to take part in every task, praising their efforts and teaching them patiently. "See," he said with a smile, "even small hands can do big things if you try carefully." The mother felt her heart lighten as she watched the connection growing between Thomas and her daughters. He was not just helping them survive. He was teaching them joy, trust, and care for the world around them. And in that she felt a seed of hope taking root, hope that their lives could truly change, that they could grow up safe and happy, and that they could learn to trust again after so much loss. By midday, they returned to the house, cold and tired but happy. The girls washed their hands at the sink, chattering excitedly about everything they had seen and done. The mother set out a warm lunch of soup and bread, and they all ate together, sharing stories and laughter. The warmth of the kitchen and the fire seemed to fill more than just their bellies, it filled their hearts. After lunch, Thomas sat down with the mother, gently taking her hand. "I know this must all feel sudden," he said softly, "but I want you to know that we can make this work. You don't have to face life alone anymore. I can help, and together we can make sure your daughters grow up happy and safe." Tears welled in her eyes, but they were tears of relief and gratitude this time. I don't know how to thank you," she whispered. "I've been so afraid, so worried every day, wondering how I would keep them alive and safe. And now you've given us hope." Thomas shook his head gently. "No thanks needed. It's just the right thing to do. And it's not just me, you all have the power to build this life too. I can guide you, help you, but it's your strength and love that will carry you forward." The mother nodded, feeling a surge of determination. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to think about the future. She could imagine her daughters growing up safe, laughing, learning, and loving life again. She could imagine herself standing strong, no longer weighed down by despair. And she realized that with Thomas's help and their own courage, this vision could become reality. The afternoon passed with more small tasks and discoveries. Thomas showed the girls how to make a small feeding area for the animals, how to gather firewood safely, and even how to start a tiny garden, planting seeds that could grow into vegetables for the winter. The girls were fascinated, their minds buzzing with curiosity and wonder. The mother helped when she could, learning alongside them, and she began to feel a sense of belonging she had almost forgotten. As evening approached, they returned to the warmth of the farmhouse. Thomas suggested they make a small Christmas decoration together, using pine cones, ribbon, and scraps of paper. The girls eagerly helped, their small fingers carefully threading ribbon through holes in the pine cones and arranging the paper into festive shapes. The mother smiled, feeling the joy of creativity and togetherness filling the room. When the decoration was finished, Thomas placed it on the windowsill where it caught the light from the fire and sparkled like a tiny miracle. The girls clapped their hands and cheered, proud of what they had made. Even the mother allowed herself a small laugh, feeling the heaviness of her worries lift, if only for a moment. Dinner that night was simple, but it was eaten with laughter and gratitude. The mother watched her daughters, their faces glowing in the firelight, and felt a deep, unshakable sense of peace. She realized that Thomas had given them more than food, shelter, and warmth. He had given them hope, security, and the possibility of a brighter future. After dinner, Thomas sat with the girls by the fire again, reading stories and telling gentle tales of kindness, courage, and adventure. The mother watched them, feeling her heart swell with emotion. She had almost given up on Christmas, on joy, on the idea that life could ever be good again. And yet here they were, alive, fed, warm, and smiling. She had never felt such relief, such gratitude, or such hope. When it was finally time for bed, the girls snuggled into their warm blankets, holding their mother's hand as she kissed them good night. They whispered their thanks to Thomas, and he smiled, brushing a stray lock of hair from Emma's face. "Sleep well," he said softly. "Tomorrow is a new day, and we'll make it wonderful together." As the mother tucked herself into her bed, she looked around the farmhouse, at the warm fire, the cozy rooms, and the laughter-filled home. For the first time in months, she felt safe. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe that life could get better, that they could have a home, and that kindness and generosity could change everything. Outside, the snow continued to glisten under the moonlight, and the farm lay quiet and peaceful. Inside, the little family slept, their hearts filled with warmth, hope, and the knowledge that even in the darkest winters, a single act of compassion could illuminate a path forward. And in that quiet, magical night, the mother knew that this Christmas, though simple and unexpected, had already given them a gift far greater than food or presents. It had given them the promise of a new beginning. The next morning, the little farmhouse was filled with a quiet excitement. The girls woke early, rubbing their eyes and stretching, eager to see what the day would bring. Outside, the snow glistened like a blanket of diamonds, and the sun reflected off the icy branches, casting playful shadows across the fields. Lily and Emma pressed their faces to the windows, smiling as they watched the sparkling world outside. For the first time in many months, the morning felt bright, cheerful, and full of possibilities. The mother stirred in the kitchen, preparing breakfast while the girls eagerly helped gather plates and utensils. It was a simple meal, porridge with a sprinkle of cinnamon and a little honey, but the aroma filled the house with warmth and comfort. Thomas entered the kitchen carrying a basket of fresh vegetables and eggs from the farm. "Good morning," he said, his voice gentle. "I thought we could start the day by planting a small garden. It will be a fun way to spend the morning, and it will help us have fresh vegetables all winter." The mother smiled, grateful for his guidance and encouragement. "That sounds wonderful," she said. "The girls will love it." Lily and Emma's eyes lit up at the idea. They had never planted a garden before, and the thought of digging in the soft soil, even on a snowy morning, made them laugh with delight. After breakfast, they bundled up in warm coats, scarves, and gloves, ready for a day of work and play on the farm. Thomas led them to a small patch of land behind the farmhouse. Though the snow had yet to melt completely, there were patches of earth where they could start planting. He handed the girls small tools and seeds, showing them how to dig little holes and place the seeds gently into the soil. Lily followed his instructions carefully, while Emma giggled as she tried to make the holes just the right size. The mother worked beside them, helping to guide their hands and laughing softly at their excitement. "See," Thomas said, smiling. "Even small seeds can grow into something big if you take care of them." The girls nodded, their faces serious with concentration, but every so often they would look up at Thomas or their mother and smile, proud of the work they were doing. The mother felt a warmth in her heart that had nothing to do with the sun or the fire. It was a warmth that came from seeing her daughters happy, healthy, and safe, and from knowing that they were building something together as a family. As the morning passed, the girls learned more about the farm. Thomas showed them the chickens, letting them feed the hens and collect fresh eggs. He taught them how to brush the cows and even showed them a few simple tasks in the barn. Each time they accomplished something, he praised them gently, making them feel proud and capable. The mother watched, amazed at how quickly her daughters' confidence and joy were returning. By midday, the family returned to the farmhouse for lunch. They were tired from the morning's work, but their eyes were bright and their hearts were full. The mother prepared a warm meal of soup, fresh bread, and cheese. They sat together at the table, sharing laughter, stories, and quiet moments of gratitude. Thomas spoke of the importance of helping one another and of finding joy in simple things. The girls listened attentively, their eyes wide with wonder and admiration. After lunch, Thomas suggested a small project inside the farmhouse. "Why don't we make a special Christmas decoration for next year?" he said. "Even though Christmas is over, we can create something that will remind us of this day and the new beginning we've started together." The girls eagerly agreed. They gathered pine cones, ribbons, and scraps of paper, and with Thomas's gentle guidance, began crafting their decorations. Lily carefully painted the pine cones, while Emma threaded ribbons through holes, giggling whenever the ribbon tangled or slipped. The mother helped too, creating small paper stars and hearts to add to their decorations. The room was filled with laughter, the sound warm and cheerful, and for the first time in months, the mother felt a deep sense of peace. She realized that life, even in its simplest moments, could bring happiness and hope. The decorations were small, imperfect, and beautiful, a symbol of the new life they were beginning together. As evening approached, Thomas suggested they take a short walk around the farm. The sun was beginning to set, casting a golden glow across the snow-covered fields. Lily and Emma ran ahead, their laughter ringing through the cold air, while the mother and Thomas walked slowly, side by side, enjoying the quiet beauty of the farm. They stopped by the edge of a small pond, where the ice had begun to form, reflecting the orange and pink hues of the sunset. The girls carefully stepped onto the thin ice, holding hands to balance, while Thomas and the mother watched from the shore. The scene was peaceful, almost magical, and the mother felt a profound sense of gratitude. For the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to imagine a future where her daughters could grow up safe, loved, and happy. As they returned to the farmhouse, the girls continued to chatter excitedly about their day, recounting every detail with joy and wonder. The mother smiled, realizing that Thomas's kindness had given them more than food and shelter. It had given them confidence, curiosity, and a sense of belonging. That night after dinner, Thomas sat with the girls by the fire and told stories of courage, kindness, and hope. The mother listened quietly, feeling the weight of her worries lifting with each passing moment. She realized that this Christmas had been more than a day of survival. It had been the start of a new chapter, one filled with warmth, love, and the promise of better days. Before bed, the mother tucked her daughters into their warm blankets. They whispered their thanks to Thomas, their eyes shining with gratitude and happiness. "Thank you for everything," Lily said softly. "We're so happy here." Thomas smiled and kissed the tops of their heads. "You're welcome, my dears. Remember, kindness and love are the most important things in the world. Take care of each other, and your hearts will always be full." The mother watched her daughters drift off to sleep, feeling a sense of relief and hope she hadn't felt in months. She knew that their journey was just beginning, but with Thomas's guidance and her own determination, they could build a life full of safety, happiness, and love. As she lay down herself, she thought about the snow-covered fields, the laughter of her daughters, and the warmth of the fire. She realized that even in the darkest winters, light and hope could be found in the simplest acts of kindness. And in that quiet farmhouse, surrounded by snow and warmth, a new life had begun, one filled with promise, love, and the enduring power of human generosity. The next few days continued in much the same way, filled with small tasks, learning, and laughter. The girls quickly adapted to life on the farm, discovering new joys each day. They learned to care for the animals, help with chores, and even prepare simple meals. The mother worked alongside them, feeling stronger and more capable with each passing day. Thomas continued to guide them gently, never rushing, always encouraging, and always showing patience and understanding. He taught them not only practical skills, but also the importance of compassion, gratitude, and perseverance. The mother felt a sense of peace and gratitude that she had not known in years. She knew that they had been given a rare gift, the gift of a fresh start, a safe home, and the promise of a bright future. By the time Christmas of the following year approached, the little farmhouse was filled with warmth, laughter, and life. The girls had grown more confident, playful, and joyful. The mother had regained her strength and hope, feeling a sense of belonging and purpose she had almost forgotten. And Thomas had become more than a friend. He had become a steady presence, a guiding hand, and a source of comfort and encouragement for the entire family. That Christmas, the mother and her daughters celebrated with more joy than they had ever known. The little decorations they had made hung proudly on the walls, the warmth of the fire filled the rooms, and the smell of fresh bread and cookies drifted through the house. For the first time, the mother felt that life was not just about survival. It was about love, joy, and the simple pleasures that make each day meaningful. As the evening came to a close, the family gathered together by the fire, holding hands and reflecting on the journey that had brought them to this point. The mother felt a deep sense of gratitude, knowing that their lives had been transformed by one simple act of kindness, and she whispered a quiet prayer of thanks for the man who had come into their lives and changed everything. For the first time in many months, she allowed herself to dream, not just of survival, but of happiness, love, and a future where her daughters could thrive. And in that quiet farmhouse, surrounded by snow and warmth, the promise of a new life had truly begun. The following morning, the farmhouse was filled with the soft, golden light of dawn. The snow outside sparkled like crystals under the early sunlight, and the fields stretched endlessly, calm and peaceful. The mother woke to the gentle hum of the household, Lily and Emma laughing quietly in their room as they prepared for the day, and Thomas moving about in the kitchen, preparing breakfast. It was a normal morning, yet for the first time in years, normal felt wonderful, warm, and full of promise. The girls came bounding into the kitchen, cheeks pink from excitement and play. Their hair was tousled, their eyes sparkling, and their laughter filled the house with a joy that had once seemed impossible. "Good morning," they shouted in unison, rushing to the table to see what Thomas had prepared. The mother smiled, her heart swelling as she watched her daughters' bright faces. She had thought that happiness was out of reach, that the shadow of hunger, fear, and loss would always linger over their lives. But now, seeing them so alive and full of joy, she realized that kindness had changed everything. The simple acts of care, generosity, and warmth had grown into something far greater than food or shelter. They had grown into hope, security, and love. After breakfast, Thomas suggested they take a walk around the farm. "The animals need attention and the garden needs a little care," he said with a smile. "It will be fun, and we'll learn something new together." The girls eagerly agreed, and the mother followed, carrying a small basket for gathering vegetables and eggs. The air was crisp and cold, but the sun warmed their faces as they walked along the snowy paths. The animals greeted them with soft sounds, chickens clucking, cows lowing, and rabbits rustling in their pens. The girls laughed and played as they worked, learning to care for the animals with gentle hands. Lily carefully collected eggs, while Emma fed the chickens, giggling when a small bird pecked at her fingers. Thomas watched them with a quiet smile, and the mother noticed how calm and content he seemed. His presence was steady and reassuring, a constant source of support and care. She felt gratitude deeper than words could express, knowing that he had not only saved them from hunger and despair, but had also given them a chance to live fully and safely. The day passed in a pleasant rhythm of work, play, and learning. The girls helped gather firewood, carried small baskets of vegetables, and even helped Thomas repair a section of the barn. Every task was a lesson, every small success a source of pride. The mother worked alongside them, feeling stronger with each passing hour, her confidence growing as she realized she could provide for her daughters in ways she had never imagined. By midday, they returned to the farmhouse for lunch. The warmth of the fire welcomed them, and the smell of fresh bread and soup filled the room. They sat together at the table, sharing food, laughter, and stories of the morning's adventures. The girls chattered endlessly, telling Thomas about the snow, the animals, and the tiny discoveries they had made. The mother listened, smiling softly, feeling a sense of peace and completeness she had not known in years. After lunch, Thomas suggested a quiet activity inside. "Why don't we create a little scrapbook of our time together?" he said. "We can put pictures, drawings, and notes about the fun things we do. It will be something we can look back on and remember all the happiness we've shared." The girls' eyes lit up at the idea. They eagerly gathered paper, crayons, and scraps of fabric. Lily began drawing pictures of the animals, while Emma carefully glued ribbons and paper shapes onto the pages. The mother contributed too, adding small notes about their daily adventures and the lessons they had learned. Thomas guided them gently, offering encouragement and suggestions, but letting their creativity shine. As the afternoon passed, the scrapbook slowly took shape, a colorful, lively record of their new life. Each page was filled with laughter, love, and the small victories that had once seemed impossible. The mother looked at the pages and felt tears prick at her eyes. This scrapbook was more than art. It was a testament to survival, resilience, and the power of human kindness. Evening came quietly, painting the snow outside in shades of pink and orange. The family gathered by the fire, enjoying a simple meal of roasted vegetables, fresh bread, and a warm drink. The girls leaned against their mother, their faces glowing with happiness and comfort. Thomas joined them, sharing stories of the farm, the animals, and the quiet joys of life. The mother realized that for the first time in a long time, they were truly living. They were not merely surviving, they were thriving. Each day brought new lessons, new laughter, and new memories. And through it all, Thomas's kindness had created a foundation upon which they could rebuild their lives. Later that night, after the girls were tucked into bed, the mother and Thomas sat quietly in the living room. The fire crackled softly, casting a warm glow across the room. "I still can't believe how much you've done for us," the mother said softly. "You've given us food, shelter, safety, and hope. I don't know how to thank you." Thomas shook his head, smiling gently. "You don't need to thank me. Seeing your daughters happy and safe is thanks enough. You've both worked so hard to get here, and it's only because of your courage and love that this home feels full and alive." The mother nodded, feeling a weight lift from her heart. She realized that life had given them a second chance, and she vowed never to take it for granted. She would protect her daughters, teach them love and kindness, and cherish every moment of safety and happiness they had been given. The next few weeks passed in a joyful rhythm. The family settled fully into life on the farm. The girls learned to care for the animals, tend to the garden, and help with small chores around the house. The mother worked alongside them, growing stronger, more confident, and filled with gratitude for the life they now had. Thomas continued to guide them gently, teaching them skills, kindness, and the value of hard work. The mother noticed how much her daughters had changed. They were more confident, more playful, and more curious about the world around them. Their laughter filled the farmhouse, their questions and observations keeping the mother on her toes but also filling her heart with joy. She realized that in this simple life, they had found the security, love, and happiness that had been missing for so long. As Christmas approached again, the farmhouse was alive with warmth and preparation. The girls helped decorate the small tree with handmade ornaments, ribbons, and pine cones. The mother prepared small treats, and Thomas contributed by crafting a simple wreath for the door. The house was filled with the scent of baked bread, warm spice, and fresh pine, and the laughter of the little family echoed through the rooms. That Christmas, unlike the last, there was no fear, no hunger, and no sadness. Instead, the house was filled with light, warmth, and the simple joy of being together. The girls opened a few small presents, practical things, but gifts given with love, and their smiles were radiant. The mother watched them, tears of happiness brimming in her eyes, knowing that they had been given more than gifts. They had been given a home, safety, and the promise of a bright future. Thomas watched the scene quietly, a soft smile on his face. He had come into their lives with nothing but kindness, and had helped transform a family's despair into hope. He felt a quiet pride, knowing that his small acts of generosity had changed the course of their lives. And in that moment, he too felt the warmth of love and connection, knowing that they had all formed a bond that would last a lifetime. After the celebrations, the mother tucked her daughters into their warm beds. They hugged her tightly, their faces glowing with happiness. "Thank you, Mommy," Lily whispered. "Thank you for everything." The mother kissed their foreheads, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. "No, my loves, thank Thomas too. He helped us when we needed it most. But remember this, kindness, love, and hope will always guide us. And as long as we are together, we can face anything. Outside, the snow lay thick and peaceful, covering the farm in a soft, quiet blanket. The moonlight reflected off the snow, illuminating the fields in a gentle silver glow. Inside, the farmhouse was warm, filled with love, laughter, and the gentle hum of life. The little family, once lost and hungry, had found safety, hope, and a home. The mother looked around the room, taking in the scene. The fire, the girls, Thomas, the decorations, and the quiet peace of their home. She realized that even the darkest winters could be overcome by kindness, generosity, and human compassion. One person's choice to help had transformed their lives entirely. And in that moment, she allowed herself to dream freely about the future, imagining a life filled with joy, security, and love. For the first time in many months, she felt truly at peace. The trials, hardships, and fears of the past had not been forgotten, but they had been replaced with hope, resilience, and gratitude. The girls were safe, happy, and loved, and she knew that together they could face whatever life had in store. The story of that Christmas, the kindness of a stranger, the strength of a mother, and the joy of her daughters, would be remembered not just as a tale of survival, but as a testament to the power of compassion, love, and hope. And in the warm farmhouse, surrounded by snow and light, they all knew that their lives had been forever changed for the better.